Dead Space 3 begins with two soldiers roughly 200 years prior to the events on the Ishimura. These men soon meet their untimely demise in an effort to exterminate any threat the marker-influenced men may have on the rest of the galaxy through the eradication of the entire colony. After surviving the terrors on the Ishimura and the Sprawl, Isaac is found in a lunar colony apartment still troubled over his past, and his apparent breakup with his fellow Sprawl survivor, Ellie.
Hey, this is Nathan with Analog Reviews, and I'm going to be interrupting, because unlike the previous games of the series, Visceral Games has decided to introduce cooperative play for the first time.
Alright then.
As Isaac meddles around in his apartment, he is recruited by Captain Robert Norton, as well as troubled family man Sergeant John Carver, who's controlled by Player 2 for the remainder of the game, if playing cooperatively.
The two move to purpose against the Unitologist threat that is assailing the lunar colony, led by Elton John enthusiast Jacob Danik. Danik's violet-tinted glasses have led him to see the future of the evolution of man through the markers, and sets forth his plan to ensure its implementation, as Isaac and John must team up to stop his Unitologist cause and save the galaxy.
Upon leaving the lunar base, you'll immediately realize that Dead Space 3 is a much more open game compared to its predecessors, littered with RPG elements, such as side quests, advanced weapon customization, and looting. The game offers a much larger and lengthy experience. You'll often find yourself early on exploring regions of space for hidden items and gear.
On that note, you'll immediately notice early on that even on the hard difficulty setting that we initially played on, you will have absolutely no need to save up and strategically use ammo and medpacks. This is by far the easiest Dead Space because of the openness it gives you and the abundance of resources. Within little time, you'll be able to craft custom guns that, after a little bit of experimentation, will lay waste to legions of necromorphs and Unitologists alike.
This isn't necessarily a bad thing, though, as the weapon customization system has depth and quickly becomes addicting. You gather miscellaneous parts, some of which are quite rare, while others are plentiful. The parts can then be used to build an arsenal of weaponry from the ground up. From your standard plasma cutter to a combination electric grenade launching Gatling gun that melts flesh with the acidic properties and buffs you and your squad mates' damage. This allows for hundreds of potential weapons.
The story of Dead Space 3 is also by far the worst of the trilogy, with a little resolution to any of the subplots, questionable character decisions, and truly unlikable characters. Captain Norton in particular being one of the worst written characters in recent memory for any video game. He's a military captain with the emotional maturity of an insecure 14-year-old with chronic halitosis.
The side quests unfortunately don't do a whole lot for the story either. While they are sometimes interesting, being told through various text and audio logs, the majority of the locations you visit are extremely repetitive and are often complete clones of other areas located elsewhere in the game, making the game's additional content quickly feel like a grind. The expense of quality, the game partially makes up for this with quantity, as a full thorough run of the co-op campaign will last over 20 hours.
In addition to necromorphs, which seem to have less variety than they did in Dead Space 2, which includes unnecessary reskinnings of the baby and child versions, human enemies make their first appearance in the series, and are pretty boring and unnecessary to fight. Luckily, it doesn't happen often, as you'll still primarily be fighting reanimated husks for the most part.
A few hours into the game, you'll travel to Tau Volantis, where the game began in the prologue, bringing a welcome change to the small dark spaceships that Isaac is so accustomed to. This is an icy world which is reminiscent of Antarctica in movies like The Thing. The harsh conditions have not been kind on the remnants of the colony that at one time thrived here.
Speaking of weathered conditions, this game, while technically more impressive, seems to quickly get lazy when it comes to art direction and variety. Besides the repetitive side quests, much of the game looks very similar. From dark spaceship hallways with a few cool older ships, to icy bases, tunnels, and ruins. Also, the art design of the older ships is questionable. They're 200 years old, but that still makes them built in the 23rd century or so. So it seems unlikely they would be absent of computers or any design practices from after 1940. They are spaceships after all.
The hallucinations and hauntings from the second game make their return, but only for Carver this time, while Isaac seems completely cured even though he seemed restless in the beginning. Carver is haunted by his family, and will regularly see childhood objects such as toy soldiers and birthday decorations. The effect is well done and welcomed.
But again, due to Isaac's sanity, he is absent of visions for the most part, creating a much less exciting experience than that of the second game. With the new additions of co-op, overpowered weapons, virtually unlimited ammo and health, and open side quests, this game has almost completely abandoned the survival horror genre. It's still a very fun game to play with a friend, and there is also the option of playing through the game on single player, absent Carver, but it's not what was hoped for after the terrific foundation that was laid out for it with the second game.
The locations aren't as interesting as a Sprawl. The tension is more or less gone, and the difficulty is far too easy, with most deaths occurring from seemingly random occurrences. The sound direction remains solid, and the game features a slightly more orchestral soundtrack that effectively sets the mood, whether for action or cold dark interiors. Some of the RPG elements are certainly welcomed, but they would have benefited from better implementation. The weapon customization, for one, is completely overpowered, and Dead Space 3 no longer feels like survival horror or a Dead Space game, for that matter.
With its lackluster story and execution, this is certainly the weakest entry of the series upon its arrival. Hopefully, if they continue the Dead Space series, they won't continue this route going further the way of Resident Evil 6. While there's still much fun to be had, and you'll get your money's worth with the initial playthrough and unlockable modes, some of the modes, such as Classic, are significantly better than the starting options. Dead Space 3 is nothing short of a disappointment, all too similar with the rest of the genre lately. If you're a fan of the series, be sure to play it with a friend, but don't go in with your expectations set high, and you'll have fun. Just don't expect a near masterpiece on the level of Dead Space 2.